morning, everyone. Pam Jacobson here, your host of Three Things You Need to Know. Welcome to anyone new who is tuning in for the first time today. You will find all of the information that you need to know about me in one of those three areas in the chat box. I've got my website there, my email address. Happy to hear from all of you. Would love to know what you want to know more about or comments on the show. And then my phone number is there. So anything I talk about today, especially if it's a supplement or a treatment, you can certainly call me. Happy to chat with you. And then my credentials and information you can find on my website. I've been in healthcare my entire career. I have spent the last 20 years in the prevention and wellness side of medicine. I'm board certified in functional medicine. And I work with clients all over the country, helping them to restore their health, their vitality, and regain the quality of life that they deserve. So if that sounds interesting to you, please reach out. You are joining us today in the midst of an ongoing series called How Tough Are You? Maintaining, developing resilience in the modern day, which for most of us or all of us in the world is, we find ourselves still in the midst of a health crisis, a pandemic. So very important time for all of us to be thinking about how we can be more resilient. And this is week 7. So in the first 5 weeks, we really laid out sort of the blueprint, if you will, the information about how to create and optimize your health foundation. In week 1, we talked about the importance of restorative sleep. In week 2, the management of stress response. In week 3, we talked about nutrition and fueling the body. In week 4, exercise and movement. And then in week 5, I interviewed Trevor Love from Orthomolecular, and he gave us sort of the inside scoop on nutraceutical manufacturing and his top recommendations for supplementation for resilience. And last week, we shifted into the next phase of this resilience series. The first 5 weeks, I laid out the blueprint, gave you the information, if you will. Those of you that watched are obviously interested in improving your health foundation. So how do we take that interest and move that over to commitment for the work that needs to be done if we're going to actually improve the health foundation? So last week, I kicked off that phase of this series and talked to you about the importance, really the number one place you have to start is with a strong why. If you don't have a strong why, you're going to have a really tough time staying committed to the work that it takes to create a healthy, strong health foundation. So I gave you an exercise to do, a 7-step process. Hopefully many of you took advantage of that and have created your why statement, because that's the place to start. This week, we're going to talk about the next phase then. If I've got a strong why and I am committed now really to the work that it's going to take, the very first step then is preparation in planning for the creation of an optimal health foundation. So there's really 3 kind of areas, if you will, or 3 key pieces to that. The first is scheduling. So I'm a big advocate on scheduling. Most of us in our culture live and die by our calendar, regardless of where you find yourself in the world, whether you are a busy executive or maybe in the entertainment industry, or you're a stay-at-home mom or dad that are now responsible for homeschooling your children. Most of us are driven by some type of a calendar where we keep our mostly probably work obligations. Maybe some of us are good at putting our social obligations in there, or maybe some of our personal appointments. But what I find interesting about scheduling is most of us are pretty proficient at doing that for ourselves as far as our work obligations go, but we don't use it as a tool or a system for our self-care, right? We don't have our self-care stuff scheduled. And without that, I think it's going to be very challenging to integrate your daily self-care routine into your other responsibilities and obligations for your day. And self-care, as I've been telling you all along these last several weeks, is your responsibility. If you want to be healthy, if you want to have good aging, if you have a health condition currently and you're trying to resolve that, you're going to have to do this work. And most of us already have an application or some type of system that we're using for scheduling. So that's number one is, and I'm not a big advocate of having a schedule for this and one for that and one for this. I think you have to use one calendar that has everything on it. That way there's no conflicts between the things you need to do for your self-care and the obligations you have. So I use my work calendar to schedule all of my self-care. Okay. So I think number one is choose your calendaring system and make sure it's the same one you're using for everything else. Second step is then to actually use that calendar to plan, to insert these self-care things into your calendar. And, I would say that in my own personal experience, having been doing this now for a number of years, this is something that you need to involve others in your life that have some kind of an impact on your daily schedule. So your family typically is what that would be. So my recommendation is that you would involve your family in that process. So pick a time during the week or on a weekend when your family is all together, and you can pull out your calendars and really investigate what the coming week is going to look like. So I have a day. For me, it's Sunday morning is when my family tends to all be together. We have breakfast together. We get out our calendars and we really just take a few minutes to talk about what's coming up next week, right? Who's going to be in, who's going to be out? When are we going to have planned meals together? Who's going to need to have lunches that are made up ahead of time and taken to work or taken outside the home? Are we going to do something together as a family for exercise or meditation, or are we all doing separate things on our own? Is there a commitment that I might have to shuttle someone someplace that is going to maybe impact when I might choose my timing for exercise that I need to know about? So it's important to involve others. Anyone who's going to have some kind of an impact on your own personal daily schedule needs to be involved in this planning process. So we get our calendars out and we notate on there what other obligations we weren't aware of, and what time our meals will be, what time our exercise will be, what time our meditations will be, what our bedtime times are. And those that, where we all do it together, then that all looks the same on all of our calendars. But many of these things, obviously, you're going to be doing on your own. But your family knows, on Wednesday at 3:00, I'm going to be, doing my exercise class, or I'm going to be shopping, or I'm going to be doing something, so that, I think that if everyone is aware of each other's calendars, there's much more respect for each individual person's timing. And so I think it's important on that planning side to involve the others in that. And then step number 3 really is then getting down to brass tacks. Right now that I know I've got my calendar, I've got everything scheduled, I know what my obligations look like for next week. Now I need to prepare. And so the last several weeks, we talked about the key areas, right? There's really kind of 4 key pillars. Sleep optimization. So when we think about preparation for sleep, we need to put our actual bedtime on the calendar. That's important because it helps with consistency of bedtime, which is important for sleep optimization and health recovery, but also preparation for sleep. So depending on what your sleep hygiene program might look like, you may be needing to do something that over the weekend to get ready. Maybe you use melatonin before you go to bed and you're running low, so you need to place an order, or perhaps you want to do a sleep meditation and you're going to look ahead and see what those meditations might be, or maybe you need to download an app. So in each of these key pillar areas, I want you to, in this third area, think about what I would need to do to prep and plan for that. So for sleep, for me, it is scheduling bedtime according to what I know my obligations are. And I'm just quickly reviewing my sleep hygiene. Is there anything in my sleep preparation? And I'm going to go into much more detail about sleep hygiene in the coming weeks. But for that routine, is there anything I need to do to prepare for that? Do I need to reorder my melatonin, or do I need to, resubscribe to my app, whatever it might be? I just want to make sure that I'm prepared so that when it comes time for me, it's my sleep hygiene period on Monday night. And, oh gosh, I forgot to do that. And so now I've, missed an opportunity to be successful there. Um, the second area of preparation would be for stress response management. And again, aside from putting the timing, number one most important thing is to put the timing on the calendar. This morning, I started this at 9 o'clock. So at 8:15, I did my meditation. That was on my calendar. I know that I do a 9 o'clock thing every Wednesday morning. So if I'm going to get my meditation in the morning before I start my day, I need to put that on my calendar. Tomorrow, my meditation time is going to be different because my morning calendar looks different. So the point is, guys, it's not enough to just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to meditate every day. When are you going to do that? And put it on your calendar. If it's not on your schedule, it's not going to happen. So in the preparation section, right, we schedule, we plan with our family, and we prepare. So with stress response management, the preparation thought process may be something like, okay, I have marked out this time for stress response management in my day. I have a 20-minute window in the morning. I have another 20-minute window when I am finished with my work for the day. And what am I going to do? I want to prepare ahead. So I may do a guided meditation. I may do biofeedback. I may do yoga or some restorative yoga, or maybe just some deep breathing. So again, it's not enough to just know I'm going to do it and to just put it on my calendar. In preparation, I should already have planned what it is that I'm going to do. Let's say I'm going to do biofeedback in the afternoon on Wednesday. Well, I use something called Inner Balance, which has a little sensor, and that sensor has to be charged. So is my sensor ready? Do I know where it's at? Is it charged? So again, when you get to that place and you're ready to roll, everything you need should be in place to allow that to happen. The third area would be nutrition. This is probably one of the most important areas for prepping and planning because it does take a little bit of work ahead of time in order to be successful. There are all kinds of food preparation apps, but again, for me personally, I find using one calendaring system for all of my self-care, it makes much more sense for me. You will have to find what works for you. But the bottom line is, in the preparation aspect of things when it comes to nutrition, this is where my Sunday really comes to life as far as getting me ready for the next week, right? So I discuss with my family, where are there going to be meals that we will do at home? What are we talking about for lunches? And in that process, I am beginning to make my shopping list. I maybe have gotten some of my favorite recipe books out or gone online and looked at some of the things I might want to do for the week. I'm really big on choosing dinner meals that create leftovers that can then be used for a lunch or another meal during the week. So especially because they also allow me to prepare things ahead of time. I'm really big on kitchen gadgets. I'll talk a lot more about this as I get into the deep details on each one of those pieces of the foundation. But the bottom line is, when it comes to nutrition, you need to use your day of the week or your time of the week for your preparation for the following week. So that's everything from creating your shopping list to going shopping, to deciding ahead of time what the recipes are going to be and what ingredients you're going to need, and then actually making ahead some of those dishes, right? If it's something like a crock pot meal or an instant pot meal, or something like that you can make ahead and either freeze or it'll store for a few days, then you've got things already done ahead of time. That's really important when it comes to nutrition. If we leave nutrition to the last minute, we tend to make really poor choices and feel overwhelmed and rushed. So you're not only on your calendar, do you need to specify when you agree with the family as to what the meal times roughly look like, but you also need to understand what the meal is going to entail and be prepared, have those ingredients on hand. And I'll go into a lot more detail in the coming weeks when I get to the nutrition aspect of things. I'm actually going to have a special guest on the show, a nutrition coach that can help us a lot with some of these ideas. So stay tuned for that. But for now, in terms of nutrition and prep and planning, it's really about those things. It's working with the family, choosing the meal time, understanding how much prep you're going to need for the week, and beginning to prep ahead as much as you can as far as pre-cooking and things like that. Exercise is no different. It's got to be on the calendar. So looking ahead, what days am I going to exercise? And for preparation, it's really what type of exercise, right? Am I going to work out with my trainer, which means I have to drive someplace potentially to do that. Or maybe those of you who are not able to work out at gym still are getting online with your trainer. What days, how much time is that going to take? And again, preparation. Is there something that I need? For instance, for yoga, I have an app that I use, and I like to do some of the live classes. So on what days is my favorite instructor offering a live class, and how do I fit that into my calendar? And again, making sure that this has been something that the family has discussed so that they know that I am obligated on Wednesday night. I've already signed up for a class, and this is important for me. It's at 5:00. I will not be working to prepare dinner or helping with homework or doing any of those things for any of you until I'm done with what I need to do for myself. We agreed. It's on my calendar. So, I had a conversation yesterday with a patient who I had consulted with several weeks ago, and she wants to improve her health foundation, and I gave her an interim lifestyle kind of behavior modification plan to follow. And we're getting some lab tests done. So a few weeks go by. She's got some time to implement that. We come together yesterday, and I said, so how are we doing with, your sleep and your stress response management? She said, oh, Pam, it's just been so busy the last few weeks. I'm completely overwhelmed. My kids went back to school, but like many of you in all areas of the country, school didn't really go back in session the way that we would have normally had in the past. And a lot of parents are having to homeschool their kids, or at least be heavily involved in that process. And so what happened? She sacrificed her self-care routine because of that reason. So we talked about, so what happens? Life changes. Life changes on a daily basis, and schedules have to be flexible, and lifestyle has to be figured out. Your self-care routine you have to figure out how to fit it into your life when life changes. And in her case, we talked about how do you make self-care part of their daily routine, involve them in that process, build it into the calendar as a family. So I think that's really critical. And we came up with some great ideas. I've got tons of ideas and experience with patients and with myself that I'll share with you over the next few weeks. But today I just wanted to lay down the baseline, if you will, for the idea of prepping and planning. It's not just about food and meals. It is about the entire process of self-care. If it is not on your schedule, it will not happen. That's what you need to understand. So just a quick review. Number one, get it on the schedule. Pick a day of the week and sit down with your family and make sure that you've synced up all of your calendars and made decisions as family in terms of your meals and exercise. And then number three, prepare absolutely everything you possibly can as far ahead as you possibly can. So when the time comes, you just basically kick it into gear. You don't have to worry about whether or not you've got everything you need to make that particular thing happen. So I hope you found this helpful. Prep and plan is one of the keys to success. But in the coming weeks, I'll talk much more in detail about the original blueprint ideas I've laid out for you. If you have your own personal story or some tips and tricks or hacks that you've come up with that help you to be consistent with your self-care plan, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, I will look forward to, as I do every Wednesday, seeing all of you here next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Have a great week, everyone, and I will see you soon.